Every office has one person nobody takes seriously. At Graywell and Partners, that person was Ethan Miller. Ethan was not lazy. He was not stupid. He was just painfully average in the most unforgettable way. He was the kind of man who could spend 20 minutes looking for his glasses while wearing them. The kind of man who once replied you to when the security guard told him to enjoy his lunch. The kind of man who brought a homemade sandwich to work every day, then forgot it in the refrigerator until it became a biological experiment with emotional trauma. In a building full of ambitious people wearing expensive suits and speaking in corporate phrases no normal human should ever use, Ethan was different. He was quiet, polite, invisible. He worked on the 23rd floor of a financial consulting company where everyone looked busy, nobody looked happy, and the printer had more emotional breakdowns than the employees. Every morning, Ethan arrived at exactly 8:47 a.m., not because he was disciplined, but because the elevator always got stuck on floor 12, and he had accepted this as part of his destiny. His job was simple. He analyzed reports, updated spreadsheets, attended meetings where people used words like synergy, alignment, and circle. Back until Ethan's soul briefly left his body, he had a small desk near the copy machine, which meant he spent most of his day listening to people fight with paper jams like ancient warriors battling invisible demons. And every day, Ethan told himself the same thing: one day, my life will become interesting. Unfortunately, the universe heard him. And the universe has a very strange sense of humor. It began on a Tuesday night. Ethan came home after another exhausting day at work. His boss, Martin Blake, had spent 40 minutes criticizing a presentation Ethan had not even made. Then somehow Ethan apologized. That was Ethan's special talent. He could feel guilty for things he was not involved in. He heated instant noodles, sat on his couch, and watched half an episode of a crime documentary before falling asleep with one sock on. That night, Ethan had a dream. At first, it felt ordinary. He was back at the office. The fluorescent lights buzzed above him. The coffee machine made its usual dying robot sound. His coworker, Linda, walked past his desk holding a mug that said, "Don't talk to me until coffee." Then suddenly, Kevin from accounting rushed across the room carrying a stack of folders. He tripped over a loose laptop charger. The folders flew into the air. Coffee spilled across Martin's expensive white shirt. Someone screamed. The fire alarm went off for absolutely no reason, and Linda calmly said, "Well, that feels legally symbolic." Ethan woke up instantly. He sat upright in bed, confused, sweating, and deeply concerned about why his subconscious had better office drama than real life. He looked at the clock. 6:11 a.m. He laughed quietly. It was just a dream. A weird dream. The kind that happens when you eat noodles too close to bedtime and emotionally depend on caffeine. He got dressed, went to work, and forgot about it. Until 10:42 a.m. Ethan was sitting at his desk when Linda walked past him holding her coffee mug. The same mug. "Don't talk to me until coffee." Ethan stared at it. Then Kevin from accounting appeared at the far end of the office carrying a stack of folders. Ethan's stomach dropped. No, impossible. Kevin walked faster. The laptop charger was lying across the floor, exactly where it had been in the dream. Ethan stood up so quickly, his chair rolled backward and attacked the copy machine. "Kevin, stop." Everyone turned. Kevin froze. "What?" Ethan pointed at the floor. "The charger." Kevin looked down. "Oh." He stepped over it safely. Nothing happened. No flying folders. No coffee explosion. No mysterious fire alarm. Ethan exhaled. For one beautiful second, he felt relieved. Then Martin Blake walked out of his office holding a cup of coffee. He glanced at Ethan. "Why are you yelling in the workplace?" At that exact moment, the copy machine behind Ethan made a violent grinding sound. Ethan turned around. The chair had knocked into the paper tray. The machine began shaking. Then somehow, with the timing of a tragic copper, it launched a sheet of paper directly into Martin's coffee. Martin flinched. Coffee splashed across his expensive white shirt. The fire alarm went off. Nobody knew why. Linda slowly lifted her mug and said, "Well, that feels legally symbolic." Ethan stopped breathing. The dream had happened. Not almost. Not vaguely. Perfectly. Just with slightly worse office equipment. At first, Ethan tried to ignore it. That was his usual response to anything stressful. Bills. Conflict. Weird body pains. Emails mark urgent. If Ethan ignored something long enough, he believed it might become embarrassed and leave. But the dreams continued. The next night, he dreamed that the office refrigerator would explode. Not dramatically like in an action movie, more emotionally. In the dream, Linda opened the fridge, screamed, and a mysterious green container rolled out like it had been waiting for revenge. The next day, at exactly 12:08 p.m., Linda opened the office refrigerator. Ethan sprinted across the break room. "Don't open that." Too late. The smell hit first. Then the green container rolled out. Everyone stepped back. Kevin whispered, "Is it moving?" Ethan stared in horror. It was his sandwich. From 3 weeks ago, technically, the fridge did not explode. But emotionally, it did. After that, Ethan started taking the dreams seriously. Each night, he saw something from the future. Each day, it happened. Perfectly. Sometimes the predictions were small. A coworker would spill soup. The elevator would stop on floor 12 again. Martin would use the phrase "let's unpack that" exactly 7 times in one meeting. Once, Ethan dreamed that the company's motivational speaker would faint after saying, "Success is a mindset." The next day, the speaker fainted immediately after saying, "Success is a mindset." Kevin clapped because he thought it was part of the presentation. But then the dreams became stranger, more specific. More personal. One night, Ethan dreamed that a woman he had never spoken to would cry alone in the stairwell at 4:15 p.m. Her name was Clara Bennett. She worked in the legal department. Clara was smart, composed, and intimidating in the way only someone who writes professional emails with perfect punctuation can be. Ethan had noticed her before everyone had. She walked through the office like someone who knew exactly where she was going, even when everyone else was spiritually lost near the printer. In the dream, Ethan saw her sitting on the stairs, holding a phone in her hand. She was crying quietly, not dramatically, not loudly. The kind of crying people do when they have been strong for too long and finally run out of places to hide. The next day, Ethan spent the entire afternoon watching the clock. 3:40 p.m., 4 p.m., 4:12 p.m. His heart pounded. At 4:14 p.m., he stood from his desk. Linda looked at him. "Why do you look like you're about to confess to a crime?" "I might need the stairs." "That is suspiciously specific." Ethan walked toward the stairwell. He opened the door carefully. And there she was. Clara. Sitting on the steps. Crying. Exactly like the dream. Ethan froze. He had predicted soup spills, broken printers, and emotional sandwiches. But this felt different. Real. Human. He slowly stepped inside. "Are you okay?" Clara wiped her face quickly. "I'm fine." It was the least convincing fine in human history. Ethan nodded. Awkwardly, right? That's usually what people say when they're absolutely not fine. She looked up at him. Despite everything, she almost smiled. "Do you always enter stairwells to analyze strangers emotionally?" "Only on Thursdays." "It's Tuesday." "Then this is concerning for both of us." A quiet laugh escaped her. Small. Broken. But real. Ethan sat a few steps below her, leaving enough distance not to make it weird, though he worried that everything he did automatically made things weird. Clara stared at the phone in her hand. "My father's in the hospital," she said softly. "They said it's serious." Ethan's expression changed. "I'm sorry." For once, he did not make a joke. He did not panic. He simply sat with her in silence. And somehow, that silence helped. From that day, something shifted between them. They began speaking more often. At first, only in small moments. Coffee machine conversations. Elevator pauses. accidental eye contact during meetings when Martin said something aggressively meaningless. Clara discovered that Ethan was funny without trying to be. Ethan discovered that Clara was not cold. She was tired. There's a difference. But Ethan did not tell her about the dreams. How could he? There is no normal way to say, hello, I believe my sleeping brain has become a supernatural calendar. So he kept it hidden until the dream about Martin. One Friday night, Ethan dreamed he was standing inside the main conference room. Rain lashed against the windows. The entire executive team was gathered round the long glass table. Martin was presenting a major investment proposal. He looked confident. Too confident. On the screen behind him were charts, numbers, and one typo so large it could legally be considered a second presenter. Then Ethan saw something strange. Martin was lying, not making a mistake, not misunderstanding the numbers. Lying. The proposal was built on full stater. If approved, it would destroy the company, cost hundreds of people their jobs, and make Martin rich before everything collapsed. In the dream, Clara stood up and challenged him. Martin turned on her. He accused her of misconduct. Security arrived. Clara lost her job. Then the dream shifted. Ethan saw the date. Monday. 9:00 a.m. Conference room. He woke up with his heart pounding. This was no longer funny. This was not about coffee stains or office refrigerators. This was dangerous. On Monday morning, Ethan arrived at work earlier than usual, 8:12 a.m. The security guard stared at him. You're early. I know. Should I call someone? Probably. Ethan rushed to Clara's office. She was reviewing documents behind her desk. Clara, I need to tell you something. She looked up. Is this about the printer again? No, worse. What's worse than the printer? Corporate fraud. She blinked. That is worse. Ethan closed the door. Then he told her everything. The dreams, the predictions. The coffee incident, the sandwich, the stairwell. Clara listened silently. When he finished, she stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, so you're telling me your dreams predict the future perfectly? Yes. And you use this gift mostly to avoid office accidents? I didn't know there was a manual. You saw the future and your first major action was preventing Kevin from tripping. He seemed fragile. Clara wanted to dismiss him. Ethan could see it. She was logical, careful, built from facts and discipline. But then he mentioned the stairwell, the phone call. Her father, the exact time. Her face changed. How could you know that? I dreamed it. Silence filled the room. Then Ethan told her about Martin's presentation. The full stater, the meeting, her being blamed. Clara stood slowly. If this is true, we need evidence. I was hoping you'd say something like that. What were you hoping I'd say? I don't know. Maybe. Let's panic professionally. Together, they began investigating. Clara knew where to look. Ethan knew what to look for. His dream had shown fragments. File names. Numbers. A folder labeled Q for risk adjustment. A private email with the subject line, clean before board review. Claire accessed public internal records. Nothing illegal. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to confirm something was very wrong. By 8:56 a.m., they had proof. Not everything, but enough. The meeting began at 9 o'clock. Martin stood at the front of conference room exactly as Ethan had dreamed. Rain hit the windows. Executives sat around the table. The presentation appeared on the screen. Same charts. Same numbers. Same enormous typo. Ethan whispered to Clara. There it is. Clara stood. Before we continue, I have concerns about the data in this proposal. The room went silent. Martin smiled. The kind of smile that does not reach the eyes because the eyes are busy plotting lawsuits. Clara, this is not the time. I think it is exactly the time. Martin's voice hardened. You are making a serious accusation. No, Clara said. I'm presenting a serious question. Ethan watched the scene unfold. It was happening exactly like the dream. Any second now, Martin would accuse her. Security would come. Clara would lose everything. Unless Ethan changed something, His heart pounded. His palms were sweating. He was not brave. Not naturally. He was a man who once apologized to an automatic door for not opening fast enough. But in that moment, he stood. Everyone looked at him. Martin frowned. Ethan, sit down. Ethan swallowed. Then he pointed at the screen. There's a hidden tab in the spreadsheet. Martin froze. The room shifted. Clara turned to him. Ethan continued, voice shaking. The numbers in the presentation are not the original numbers. They were changed from the Q for risk adjustment file. There's also an email titled clean before board review. Martin's face went pale. How would you know that? Ethan paused. This was the moment. The truth would sound insane. So he chose the only answer that felt honest. I had a dream. The room went completely silent. Kevin, who had somehow been invited to take notes, whispered, honestly, I believe him. Martin tried to recover. This is absurd. But Clara had already connected her laptop to the screen. She opened the file. There it was, the hidden tab, the original numbers. The altered figures. The email. Everything. For the first time in company history, nobody said circle back. Martin was suspended the afternoon. By the end of the week, he was under investigation. Clara became the person who saved the company. Ethan became the man everyone suddenly wanted to talk to. This was deeply uncomfortable for him. People started asking him for dream predictions. Will I get promoted? Should I buy crypto? Will my boyfriend text back? Will the cafeteria ever make edible soup? Ethan had no answers. The dreams did not work that way. They showed what they wanted, not what he asked. And then one night, Ethan had the dream that changed everything. He dreamed of the office again. But this time, it was empty. Dark. Rain covered the windows. The lights flickered. He walked through the rows of desks, calling Clara's name. No answer. Then he saw her, standing near the elevator. The doors opened behind her. Inside was darkness. Not a normal power outage darkness. Something deeper, something final. Clara turned toward him and said, you are not supposed to stop everything. Then the elevator doors closed. Ethan woke up gasping. 3:33 a.m. His room was silent. For the first time, a dream had not shown a joke, or a warning, or a workplace disaster. It showed a consequence. The next morning, Ethan found Clara on the rooftop garden during lunch. She was staring out at the city. You look like someone who dreamed about taxes, she said. Worse than taxes? I think I broke the future. Clara did not laugh. She had learned by now when Ethan was joking. And when he was afraid. He told her about the dream. The elevator. The darkness. Her words, you are not supposed to stop everything. Clara listened carefully. Then she said, maybe the dreams don't exist to control the future. What do they exist for? To reveal who you become when you know what's coming. That sentence stayed with him. Because Ethan had spent his entire life avoiding responsibility, avoiding conflict, avoiding risk. He thought being invisible protected him. But invisibility is not peace. Sometimes it is just fear wearing comfortable shoes. The dreams continued. But now they became harder. One showed Kevin getting fired unfairly. Ethan helped prove the mistake. One showed Linda collapsing from stress after pretending she was fine. Ethan convinced her to go home before it happened. One showed a fire starting in the records room because someone plugged 6 devices into one ancient power strip that looked older than democracy. Ethan stopped it. Badly. He ran into the room yelling, unplug the democracy strip. But it worked. For the first time, Ethan began to feel like his life had meaning. Not because he could see the future, but because he finally cared enough to act in the present. Then came the final dream. The dream was quiet. To quiet, he saw the office building at night. A company celebration was happening on the top floor. Music. Laughter. Champagne. People smiling like they had not spent years emotionally negotiating with spreadsheets. Clara stood near the window. Linda danced terribly, confidently. Kevin tried to open a bottle of sparkling water and treated it like bomb disposal. Then Ethan saw himself, standing near the elevator. The lights flickered. The elevator doors opened. Inside, cable snapped. The emergency brake failed, and the elevator dropped. But this time, Ethan understood. The dream was not warning him about Clara. It was warning him about everyone. The building inspection had been ignored. The elevator system was failing. And at exactly 8:18 p.m. the next night, someone would die. Ethan woke with tears in his eyes, because in the dream, he had seen who stepped into the elevator. Clara. The next day, Ethan tried to warn building management. They ignored him. He tried HR. They created a ticket, which in corporate language means they placed the problem gently into a digital coffin. He tried security. The guard nodded sympathetically and said, "The elevator has been weird for years. That is not comforting. It is consistent." By evening, the celebration began. Everyone gathered on the top floor. Music played. People laughed. For once, the office felt alive. Ethan watched the clock. 8:05 p.m., 8:10 p.m., 8:15 p.m. His heart raced. Clara found him near the hallway. "You're doing the face." "What face?" "The face of a man who knows something terrible and is trying not to become a human fire alarm." Ethan looked at her. "You can't take the elevator tonight." She went still. "Is this from a dream?" "Yes." "Who gets hurt?" Ethan swallowed. "You." Clara's expression softened. "Ethan, no, please. Just trust me." Before she could answer, the lights flickered. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. People started walking toward it. Ethan's blood ran cold. It was happening. Not just Clara. 5 other employees moved toward the elevator. Kevin among them. Ethan shouted, "Stop." No one heard over the music. He ran forward. "Do not get in that elevator." People turned. Martin would have called him ridiculous, but Martin was gone. And Ethan had changed. So this time, when he shouted, people listened. The elevator doors began closing. Kevin stood halfway inside. Ethan grabbed him by the jacket and pulled him out. "What are you doing?" Kevin yelled. "Saving your life?" "Probably. That's fair." The doors closed. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the entire shaft thundered. A horrifying metallic scream tore through the building. The elevator dropped. People screamed. The music stopped. The floor trembled. Silence followed. Then chaos. Security ran. Someone called emergency services. Clara stared at Ethan. Shaken. He had done it. He had changed the future. Not slightly. Completely. And for the first time since the dreams began, Ethan felt no fear. Only grief for what almost happened. And gratitude for what did not. Weeks passed. The company changed after that night. Real inspections were done. Actual safety policies were created. Kevin became strangely passionate about elevator maintenance. Lenders started taking lunch breaks. Clara was promoted. And Ethan became known as the man who dreamed the truth. He hated the nickname, but he accepted the attention with the exhausted humility of someone who still could not successfully operate the coffee machine. One evening, Clara found him sitting alone in the break room. "Any dreams lately?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "No, none, nothing." "Does that scare you?" He thought about it. Once. It would have, but not anymore. "No," he said softly. "I think maybe I don't need them right now." Clara sat beside him. "You know, for a man who predicted the future, you were surprisingly bad at noticing the present. That feels accurate and hurtful." It was meant to be both. He laughed. A real laugh. The kind he had not heard from himself in years. Outside, the city glowed beneath a quiet night sky. Inside, the office hummed with ordinary life. Printers jammed. Emails arrived. Kevin dropped a spoon and apologized to it. Everything was normal. Again, beautifully normal. Then, Ethan's phone buzzed. Our calendar reminder appeared. Meeting tomorrow, 9:00 a.m. Subject, future planning. Ethan stared at it, then looked at Clara. She raised an eyebrow. "What?" Ethan smiled. "Nothing. I just suddenly have a bad feeling about corporate language." The next morning, Ethan arrived at work at exactly 8:47 a.m. The elevator stopped on floor 12. As always, a man in a suit sighed. "Why does it always stop here?" Ethan smiled. "Destiny." The doors opened. Nobody was there. The man looked Confused, Ethan stepped out anyway. He took the stairs the rest of the way, not because of a dream, not because of fear, but because, for once, he wanted to choose something before the future told him to. And as he climbed toward the 23rd floor, slightly out of breath and deeply regretting his life choices, Ethan laughed. Because maybe the future was not something to escape. Maybe it was not something to control. Maybe the future was simply waiting to see who you would become when you finally stopped sleepwalking through your life.